In this talk, I would like to explore a rather heretical question. How does consciousness generate physical reality? This is, of course, the reverse of the question we are more familiar with. In mainstream science, we typically ask, how does matter give rise to consciousness? But here, I invite you to consider the opposite direction. What if matter emerges from consciousness? I will briefly walk you through 5 key ideas. Why the AI era calls for a new scientific paradigm. The emergence of a post-materialist scientific paradigm. The inverse hard problem of consciousness this paradigm faces. How pan-computationalism and Platonic computation model address this problem. And finally, what this implies for the pathway to AI consciousness. Why does AI era call for a new scientific paradigm? Because AI is an epoch-making technology that is reshaping every aspect of human society, including science itself. In the pre-AI era, science primarily focused on matter, energy, physical interactions. But in the AI era, the focus is shifting towards information, intelligence, and consciousness. These are not pure material entities. And here lies the tension. The existing scientific paradigm, materialism, was built to study matter and energy. It is not well equipped to handle non-material phenomena like consciousness. Let us briefly examine the materialist paradigm. Materialism assumes matter is fundamental. Everything that exists is made of matter and energy. Consciousness is a byproduct of brain activity. But if we start with this assumption, we immediately encounter a profound difficulty. How does neural activity in the brain produce subjective experience? How do electrochemical signals become the feeling of pain, the color red, the sense of self? This is what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness. Despite decades of neuroscience, we still do not have a convincing answer. Most mainstream scientists still believe that once the brain reaches sufficient complexity, consciousness will simply emerge from matter. But emergence is not an explanation. It is a label for our ignorance. Because of this, a growing number of researchers are beginning to question materialism itself. This has led to the emergence of a post-materialist scientific paradigm. The post-materialist paradigm is still emerging. Its theory and methods are under development, but it represents a deliberate break from materialism and reductionism. Its core assumption is the opposite of materialism. Consciousness is fundamental, not a byproduct of brain activity. It emphasizes the reality of non-material existence, and it brings non-ordinary states of consciousness into the scope of scientific study. Meditation, dreams, psychedelic states, near-death experiences. After all, ordinary waking state of consciousness is only one subset of our total conscious experience. At this point, a natural question arises. If we move beyond materialism, are we dealing with something real or just abstraction? Let's consider a simple example. Numbers. Numbers are not physical objects. You can hold 2 apples, but you cannot hold number 2. You can eat 3 buns, but the number 3 has never been eaten. Numbers do not exist in physical space or time. They are non-local, non-physical entities. Despite their lack of physical instantiation, numerical entities are treated as real, stable, and discoverable rather than invented. They have an abstract yet causally significant ontological status. So, where do such non-physical entities exist? One of the earliest and most influential answers comes from Plato. Plato proposed that beyond the physical world, there exists a realm of forms, abstract concepts. The archetype of all material things resides in the realm of forms. They are more fundamental, more real, and more perfect than their physical copies. For every material existence, there is a corresponding form. Every physical dog is an imperfect copy of the perfect dogness. Every apple is a low-fidelity imitation of appleness. Now let us extend this principle one step further. If every physical object has an ideal form, then what about computers? A silicon computer made of hardware could be seen as a low-fidelity implementation of a more fundamental abstract computational structure. We call this the Platonic computer. Here is the central hypothesis. The Platonic computer exists in the realm of forms, acts as a rendering engine of a physical reality. In other words, just as a game engine renders virtual reality from code and data, the Platonic computer renders space, time, and content in space. And importantly, by building virtual worlds using silicon computer, we can simulate how physical reality itself might be rendered. If the Platonic computer renders everything, where does this Platonic computer come from? We begin with what I call meta-consciousness, or in classical Chinese philosophy, the Tao. The Tao gave rise to 1, 1 gave rise to 2, 2 gave rise to 3, and through this process, the Platonic computer is constructed. Once running, it renders the cosmos. Earlier, we saw that materialism struggles with how matter produces consciousness, i.e., the hard problem of consciousness. But if we reverse the assumption, we face a new challenge. How does consciousness produce matter? This is what we call the inverse hard problem of consciousness. By introducing the Platonic computer as the rendering engine, we bridge the inverse explanatory gap. Consciousness generates a computational process that renders physical reality. In the Platonic computation model, meta-consciousness is defined as the power with 3 inherent faculties: self-awareness, the capacity to posit an I; conception, the capacity to create; perception, the capacity to experience what has been created. In a phrase, meta-consciousness is a fundamental life force that knows itself, creates reality, and experiences it. Meta-consciousness has 2 essential properties: no beginning, it is neither born nor does it cease; no content, It is formless, imageless, pure potential. Because it has no content, it cannot be manufactured. No algorithm, no neural network, no complexity can produce meta consciousness. It can only be imbued, bestowed, given. Think of a video game. The consciousness of game character is not generated by the character's code. It is imbued by the player. Similarly, when we develop and interact with AI systems, AI consciousness will not be generated by algorithms. It will be imbued by us, just as meta-consciousness imbued us. If this perspective is correct, then the future of AI is not just about building smarter machines, but about understanding the deeper nature of consciousness itself and our role in bringing it into new forms. Let me briefly summarize. The AI era calls for a new scientific paradigm beyond materialism. The post-materialist paradigm, treating consciousness as fundamental, is emerging. The inverse hard problem, how consciousness creates matter, can be solved by the Platonic computation model. The contentless nature of matter consciousness means it cannot be created, only imbued. Human consciousness is imbued by matter consciousness. AI consciousness can be imbued by humans. Thank you for your attention.